The morning I found the loan papers, I was looking for a rubber band. That is the truth of it. I was not snooping. I was not suspicious. I was 63 years old, standing in my own kitchen in my housecoat and slippers, rooting through the junk drawer because I needed a rubber band to hold together a bundle of coupons before my Tuesday grocery run. That is all I was doing. The envelope was wedged behind a takeout menu from a Chinese place that had closed 2 years ago. Cream-colored, official-looking, with a bank logo in the upper left corner I did not recognize at first. I pulled it out thinking it might be something I had forgotten about. A bill. A notice. Something boring. My name was on it. Dorothy Elaine Simmons, it said. Except my name is not Dorothy Elaine Simmons. My name is Ruth Elaine Hatcher, and I have lived in Clarksville, Tennessee for 41 years, and I have never in my life applied for a loan from a bank in Memphis. I stood there in my kitchen with the coupon bundle in one hand and that envelope in the other, and I read the whole thing twice. A personal loan. $42,000, approved 8 months ago, signed, apparently, by me, except I did not sign it. I want you to understand something before I go any further. My daughter is not a bad person. I have told myself that so many times over the years that the words have worn grooves in my thinking, like a path through a field where feet have walked the same route so often the grass just gave up growing. She is not bad. She is just someone who learned very early that the path of least resistance always ran straight through me, and I let it. For a long time, I let it. Her name is Gwendolyn, Gwen. She is 38 years old, and she has her father's eyes and my stubbornness and a habit of solving her problems by making them someone else's. Her husband's name is Trent. He sells something, I was never entirely clear on what, and he drives a truck that costs more per month than my first mortgage payment. They live 40 minutes from me in a subdivision where every house looks like every other house, and they have 2 children, my grandchildren, Ava, who is 9, and little James, who just turned 6. I love those children with everything I have. That is the thing about loving grandchildren. It is the cleanest love I have ever felt. No history in it, no ledger. Just those small faces looking up at you like you are something wonderful, and you would do anything at all, to stay wonderful in their eyes. Gwen knew that. I do not think she planned it as coldly as it sounds. I think it started as convenience and slowly became expectation, and then, somewhere along the way, expectation became entitlement without anyone noticing the shift. That is how it happens in families. Not with a door slamming, with a door slowly swinging open inch by inch, until one day you realize the whole wall is gone. It started when Ava was born. Gwen stopped working, which I understood. Trent's income was inconsistent, which I also understood. They needed help with the electricity bill one month, which I was glad to give. Then the following month it was groceries, then car insurance, then the internet bill, because Gwen said she needed it to look for remote work, and did I want her to find a job or not? I gave her the money for the internet bill. I kept giving, month after month, year after year. I tracked it at first in a small notebook I kept in my nightstand. I stopped tracking after the first 2 years because the numbers made my stomach hurt. By the time little James started kindergarten, I had been supplementing their household for 6 years. I was paying their car note, their utilities, their grocery runs when Trent's commission checks came up short, which was most months. I was retired. I had my pension from 31 years of nursing and my Social Security and a small savings account I had been careful with since Harold passed. I was not rich, but I was comfortable, and comfortable felt like enough. And Gwen was my daughter, and those were my grandchildren, and I told myself that this was what family did. I told myself that so many times. The Tuesday before I found the envelope, Gwen had called me. I was watching the evening news and she called, and I turned the TV down with the remote and answered the way I always answered her, with my voice already soft and ready, because a call from Gwen always required a certain readiness. She said she needed to talk to me about something. I said okay. She said that she and Trent had been looking at their budget and they felt that I needed to think about adjusting my lifestyle. Those were her words, adjusting my lifestyle. I asked her what she meant. She said that I had my pension and my Social Security and the house was paid off, so my expenses were low, and she felt that I could comfortably reduce some of my personal spending to redirect more support toward her family. I did not say anything for a moment. She kept talking. She said that Trent's business was going through a difficult quarter. She said that Ava needed braces and little James had outgrown his winter coat and they were looking at the numbers and things were very tight, and she just thought that if I looked at my own expenses honestly, I would see places to cut back. I said, "What expenses do you think I should cut back on?" She said, "Well, you have that gym membership you hardly use, and you take those painting classes on Thursdays that you do not strictly need, and you go to lunch with your friends, what is it, twice a month? That adds up." She was telling me to give up my painting class, my one painting class, which cost $40 a month and was the only place I went all week where nobody needed anything from me. I said I would think about it. She said she appreciated that, and she loved me, and she would call me this weekend. I did not sleep well that night. I lay in the dark in Harold's side of the bed, which I had moved to after he passed because for some reason it felt less lonely, and I thought about my painting class. I thought about how I had started taking it 3 years ago when my friend Claudette dragged me there after my knee surgery, and how the first day I had felt so foolish because everyone else seemed to know what they were doing and I could not even hold the brush right. I thought about how now I looked forward to Thursday mornings the way I used to look forward to Friday afternoons when I was still working. I thought about my instructor who always said I had a good eye for color, whether she meant it or not. I did not want to give up my painting class. I woke up before 5 and went to the kitchen, and that is when I opened the junk drawer looking for a rubber band. I stood there for a long time after I read the loan papers, long enough that my coffee went cold on the counter. The loan had been taken out 8 months ago. $42,000. The bank was in Memphis. A lender I did not recognize, the kind you see advertised on billboards on the highway with promises of fast approval and easy terms, which usually means they do not look too hard at what you give them. Someone had signed my name. I thought about who had access to my information, my Social Security number, my date of birth, my address. Gwen had helped me set up online banking 2 years ago. She had sat right here at this kitchen table with my laptop and helped me because I was having trouble with the login. I had watched her type. I had not thought anything of it. My hands were very steady. I noticed that. I would have expected them to shake, but they did not. I set the envelope down on the kitchen table, and I sat in my chair, the one closest to the window where I can see the bird feeder Harold put up in 2009. And I looked at the cardinal that was sitting on the edge of it, and I thought very clearly and very calmly about what to do next. I did not call Gwen. I called my friend Claudette first. Claudette has worked in HR for 30 years, and she is the most organized person I have ever known in my life. I told her what I found. She was quiet on the phone for a moment. And then she said, "Ruth, do not touch anything, do not call anyone, and come to my house right now." I drove to Claudette's house in my housecoat, which tells you something about my state of mind. We spent the rest of that morning going through everything. Claudette helped me call the bank and freeze the account that had been opened in my name. The loan officer was a young man who sounded tired, and when I explained the situation, he shifted in his tone and became more careful and transferred me to their fraud department. They asked me a series of questions. Yes, I confirmed that was my Social Security number. No, I confirmed I had not applied for this loan. No, I had not given anyone permission to apply on my behalf. The woman in the fraud department told me that someone had applied on mine. that the application had been submitted with my personal information but an email address I did not recognize. She said they would open an investigation and that I should file a police report and contact the credit bureaus immediately. Claudette wrote everything down in her notebook while I was on the phone. Every name, every number, every next step. When I hung up, she handed me the list. I drove home that afternoon in a different kind of quiet than the one I had driven to her house in. That morning it had been shock. This was something else, something that felt less like a feeling and more like a decision. I did not call Gwen that day. I started making phone calls of a different kind. I called the company that did my taxes and asked them to pull my credit report with all 3 bureaus. I called my bank and changed every password and removed Gwen's name from the account she was linked to for the automatic transfers. I had added her years ago for emergency purposes in case something happened to me. Now I removed it. Then I sat down with my notebook, a legal pad this time, not the little one from my nightstand, and I wrote down every payment I made to or for Gwen and Trent's household. I had to go back through 2 years of bank statements, which took me 2 evenings and most of a third morning, but I wrote them all down. The final number was 112 separate transactions over 24 months, not counting the personal loan in my name that I had known nothing about. Groceries, utilities, car note, insurance, Ava's school supplies, little James's birthday party, their anniversary dinner when Trent forgot to make a reservation somewhere nice, and Gwen called me in a panic that afternoon. 112 times, and they had told me to live less comfortably. I want you to know that I did not do what I did next in anger. That is important to me. Anger is loud and hot, and it makes you do things that feel satisfying for about 15 minutes, and then you have to live with the aftermath for years. What I felt was closer to clarity, like when you have been squinting at something for so long that you have forgotten you were squinting, and then suddenly you put on the right glasses and everything just sharpens. I could see very clearly now. I started making a list of everything I paid for Gwen and Trent. Every automatic transfer, every bill account I was connected to, every place my name or my payment information appeared in their financial life. It took me about a week to find them all. Some of them I had forgotten about entirely, which tells you something about how gradual it had all been. Their electricity account. I had been listed as the secondary account holder for 4 years and had my card on file as the backup payment method. Their car insurance. I co-signed when Trent had 2 citations and could not get a rate he could afford. The grocery delivery service. I had set it up and never removed my card. Their streaming subscriptions, 3 of them, all charged to my account. Ava's piano lessons. I paid the studio directly each month. The storage unit they rented. I had agreed to put it in my name temporarily 18 months ago. I found 17 separate places where my money or my name or my credit was woven into their daily lives. 17 threads. I gave myself 3 weeks. I did not rush. I opened new accounts at a different bank. I set up my own everything fresh and clean with new passwords and a new email address that nobody had. I spoke to a lawyer, a woman named Adelaide, who had an office above the dry cleaner on Main Street and who specialized in elder financial abuse. She was very matter-of-fact and very kind. She told me what my options were. She told me what the bank investigation might or might not result in. She told me to document everything, which I was already doing. I did not tell Gwen any of this. She called me 3 times during those 3 weeks. Once to see if I had thought about what she said, once to tell me about Ava's braces consultation, once to ask if I could watch little James on Saturday because she and Trent had plans. I answered every call. I kept my voice even. I said yes to watching James because that child did not deserve to be a casualty of something he did not cause or understand. He came on Saturday and we baked oatmeal cookies and watched a movie about a dog, and he fell asleep on my sofa with cookie crumbs on his shirt, and I sat beside him and felt something I did not have words for. On a Sunday evening in the middle of October, I sat down at my kitchen table with my new laptop and a cup of tea that was too hot to drink, and I worked through the list. I removed my card from the grocery delivery service. I called the insurance company and had myself removed as co-signer. The representative told me that Trent's policy would need to be rewritten. I said that I understood. I contacted the utility company and removed myself from their electricity account. I canceled the 3 streaming subscriptions. I called the piano studio and let them know that effective the 1st of next month, billing would need to go through the family directly. I called the storage unit company and began the process of having the unit transferred out of my name, one by one. Quiet as folding laundry. I transferred the last thing on the list on a Wednesday afternoon. I remember it was Wednesday because the garbage truck came while I was on the phone with the insurance company, and I had to step outside to move my bins after I hung up. The October air was cool and smelled like someone nearby was burning leaves. I stood on my driveway for a minute after I moved the bins. 17 threads. I had cut every single one of them. I went back inside and made a fresh pot of coffee, and I sat in my chair by the window and looked at the bird feeder, and I did not feel triumphant. I want to be honest about that. People expect you to feel triumphant in moments like this, like you are in a movie and the music swells and everything resolves into something clean. It was not like that. What I felt was tired and sad. And under the tired and the sad, so far down I almost missed it. Something that might have been relief. The calls started 4 days later. First, it was the electricity. Gwen called and said there was a problem with their account. The card on file had been declined. I said that was because I had removed my card. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I mean I removed my card from your account." She said, "Well, how am I supposed to pay the bill?" I said, "The same way you pay any bill, Gwen. With your own payment method." She hung up. Trent called an hour later. I did not answer. He left a voicemail that I still have saved in which he explained to me, patiently, as though I might not understand, that they were going through a difficult time and that family was supposed to support each other and that he was sure this was just a misunderstanding. I listened to it twice. I did not call him back. The piano studio called Gwen directly. She called me afterward, and this time her voice was different. Not angry, which surprised me. Something more like bewildered. She said, "Mom, what is happening?" I said, "I am adjusting my lifestyle, Gwen." Those were her words. I gave them back to her as gently as I could. She did not say anything for a long moment. Then she said, "We cannot afford all of this on our own." I said, "I know." She said, "You know." I said, "Yes, I know." I said, "Yes, I know. I have known for a while." And I kept thinking that if I just kept giving, things would even out eventually. But they did not even out. They only expanded. And then you told me that I was living too comfortably. And I sat with that for a while. She started to cry. Not manipulative crying, though I had seen that from her before. This was quieter, and it surprised me. She said she had not meant it the way it sounded. I said I thought maybe she had not, but I told her it had helped me see something I should have seen a long time ago. I did not mention the loan, not yet. That is still with the bank's fraud department and with Adelaide. That conversation will come in its own time with a lawyer present if necessary. I said, "You and Trent are going to have to figure out your own budget now. I will not be a part of it." She asked about Ava and James. I said, "Those are my grandchildren, and I love them, and that has nothing to do with any of this. They can come see me whenever they want. I will still show up for their school things. I will still bake James his birthday cake. I am not disappearing, but I am done paying your bills." She asked if she could come over. I said not today. I said I needed a little more time, and I thought she probably did too. I hung up the phone and sat very still in my kitchen for a while. The cardinal was back on the bird feeder. Same one, or maybe a different one. I can never quite tell. It pecked at the seat and then lifted off and was gone in less than a second, just a small red streak across the gray October afternoon. I had a painting class on Thursday. I went. My instructor told me that my piece that week had a very different quality to it than my usual work. She said it felt more settled. I did not explain why. I just thanked her and cleaned my brushes and drove home in the thin autumn light. It has been almost 2 months now. The investigation is ongoing. Adelaide says these things take time, and I have learned to be patient with time. Gwen and Trent are adjusting, which is a gentle word for what is actually happening, but they are doing it. Trent picked up additional accounts with his work. Gwen found a part-time position with a home insurance company, remote, 3 days a week. She called to tell me about it, and her voice had something in it I had not heard in a long time. Not quite pride, but the beginning of it, maybe. Ava came last Saturday and helped me rake the backyard. She is 9 years old and serious in that way. Some children are, always observing, always taking notes in her head. She asked me why I had so many paintings in my hallway. I told her I had been taking a class. She looked at each one very carefully, the way children do when they are not performing interest, but actually feeling it. She stopped in front of one I did 3 weeks ago, mostly blues and grays, with a streak of orange at the edge. She said, "Grandma, this one looks like something is just starting." I looked at it for a moment. I said, "I think you are right." She took my hand and we went inside to find something to eat. And little James was on the couch building something complicated out of Legos. And the house smelled like the coffee I had made that morning. And for the first time in longer than I could exactly remember, everything in it belonged only to me. I have thought a lot about what I would tell someone who was standing where I was standing 2 years ago, not where I was standing when I found that envelope. That moment has its own clarity, the kind that comes whether you want it or not. I mean the years before that, the years of saying yes when I should have said nothing at all, or at least asked a question first. Here is what I have come to believe. When you give without limit and without expectation, you are not just giving money or time or energy, you are teaching people how to see you, and after long enough, they stop seeing a person and start seeing a resource. That is not cruelty, not always. It is just what happens when a pattern goes unchallenged for too long. Gwen did not wake up one morning and decide to take advantage of her mother. She woke up every morning in a life where her mother's support was simply there, like water from a tap, and she stopped thinking about where it came from. That is on me as much as it is on her. I know that now. The harder thing to admit is that I kept giving because it was easier than having the conversation. Every time I transferred money, instead of asking why their own income was not covering their own bills, I avoided something uncomfortable. And every avoidance made the next one simpler. I told myself I was being generous, and I was, but I was also being a coward in a way that wore a very convincing costume. What changed me was not finding that envelope. What changed me was Gwen's voice on the phone, calm and reasonable, explaining to me that I should give up my painting class so that I could redirect that $40 toward her household. The painting class I had fought through a knee surgery to get back to, the one Thursday morning that was mine. There is a point where someone's comfort begins to require your discomfort, and they have stopped noticing the trade. That is when you know something has gone very wrong, and only one of you can fix it. Cutting those 112 transfers was not revenge. I want to be careful about that word because it implies I wanted them to suffer, and I did not. I wanted them to become capable. There is a difference. A person who has never had to carry their own weight does not build the muscle for it, and no amount of watching someone else carry it will change that. The kindest thing I could do for Gwen, as her mother, was to stop carrying what was hers to carry. She is figuring it out. It is not graceful, and it is not fast, but she is doing it, and I think somewhere under the resentment that I know she still feels in moments, she knows it too. Trent, I am less sure about, but that is Gwen's problem to navigate now, not mine. What I keep coming back to is Ava, standing in my hallway, looking at that painting with the streak of orange at the edge. She is 9 years old, and she saw something in it that I had not quite articulated to myself. Something just starting. A woman at 63 standing in her own kitchen in a house that is finally only hers again, learning what it means to hold on to something small and important and refuse to let anyone talk her out of it. That is not a small thing. That is, I think, everything.